Our house was built in 1991, and the vinyl siding does not go all the way down to the ground. So they put an inch of foam insulation on, and then they spackle over the top of it. Well, as you can see, over the years there's been new spackle put on, but it never matches the old stuff, and it never stays on. And then the sun starts working on the insulation and starts eating away the insulation. So I've been always, since 91, trying to find something that's going to work, that I don't have to upkeep every 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah, you could put slabs of stone on there, but I've seen the mortar in between the stones start to fall off, and then the stone falls off. So that wasn't a viable option. So I finally found something that I think will work. Worried a little bit about expansion and contraction with the heat, but we'll see how it works out, and I will update later how it works as the summer goes on and gets a little bit hotter out and a little more hot sun. This is what I found. It's called Groundbreaker, and it's made by a company called NUDO. We got ours through Menards. It's a 1/16 of an inch thick, and it is made from F.R.P. they call it, which is Fiberglass Reinforced Plastic. Supposed to be impervious to weed eater and grass hitting it and the ground. Supposed to work really well. What I'm doing on my house is removing my strip on the bottom of my vinyl siding and tucking this up behind that, and then putting the strip that holds the bottom of the vinyl down. I'm nailing through the Groundbreaker and back into the wood of the house, and then putting the lower section of the vinyl siding back on. So one of the questions that I asked myself when I first got it was, is it going to have a memory, or is it going to roll out and stay rolled out? Well, I can tell you that it does have a memory, and it does loosen up as you lay it out in the sun, and it is much easier to work with after it's warm and laying out in the sun. I can tell you that cutting it, I'm using a Milwaukee skill saw, or Milwaukee wood saw, with the blade in backwards, with like a 52 tooth type blade, which seems to work the best. And I also use, as you can see there, it's all-purpose snips. Well, if you go to the end of the snips, it will fracture the fiberglass in this Groundbreaker, so you don't want to cut to the end of the snips. You want to be careful how you cut and how you pull on this stuff, because it will fracture. But it is pretty tough stuff. I bought some Tapcon screws that I'm using to put in to hold it in place, because it wants to curl up a little bit on the corners especially. So the first thing you got to do is buy one of these little handy dandy vinyl siding tools, so that you can get under the vinyl siding and pull it off of the track that is on the bottom side of the last piece of vinyl siding. You got to get this up underneath here and then work it along the edge and pull it down off of that track, just like that. And then you can slide it along. Sometimes it's a real pain in the yin-yang to get it to come off, but that's basically what you do to get the vinyl siding off of this track, because we're going to put the Groundbreaker up behind this track. So we're going to pull this track off. I use a couple of 1x4s 30 inches long, because I've got 2-foot Groundbreaker, and I've got about 2 feet here, a little more than that. And then I'm going to put mulch along the edge of the house to be able to cover that edge up and hold that down against the lower side of the building. I will also put Tapcons across the bottom, and I'll show you that when I get to that point. But at this point, this is what I got to do. Take this off, then I will take off this track and basically work that. Now you got to watch out up here, because you see that this piece is kind of short. You can slide these back and forth. You maybe got an inch of room there to slide that back and forth. If you pull up on this too hard without pulling this corner back, you will end up breaking a piece of this vinyl siding. The longer they're on a house, it seems that the more fragile they become. So just try to be careful and take your time. So as you can see there, this is what I do. I cut those at 30 inches, which works for me because I'm replacing a piece that's 24 inches. So I cut those at 30 inches to hold the vinyl siding up so that while I'm working underneath there, I can remove all of the nails that are holding the track on along here, because this track has to come off so that I can put the Groundbreaker down first and then nail the track over it. And if you look at the tape measure here, you can see that I'm about 24 inches. So what I'll do is I'll just extend this up above the nail line and then fill in with mulch down below. What I am worried about, that I have brought up to my wife, is that this is a mixture of plastic and fiberglass, and the fiberglass should be fine. I'm hoping the fiberglass makes the plastic so it doesn't expand and contract so much, because plastic is an issue. Like plastic decking expands and contracts something crazy. So if that ends up being that situation, then what I'll end up with here is look like waves going down the side of the house as it expands with the heat, because I'm not allowing for that expansion and contraction. I'm hoping that the fiberglass will do the trick and everything will work out good. We'll see. So this is the tool that I'm using to get the siding or roofing nails, which are galvanized 2-inch long, to get them out of the track underneath the vinyl siding. So now you can see the track from down below here, and you can see the nail right here, nail there, nail there, nail there. What I'm doing is putting the end of this underneath there, hitting it a couple times, getting it started, and then get on it with the other end. Get underneath that nail and pull that nail out. Before you take this strip off that holds the vinyl siding down, make a mark back in here in an inconspicuous spot with a black marker so that you know where the bottom of this trim strip is. You can kind of see it here along on the insulation also, so that'll help you as you go too for tacking it back on. So as you can see right here, I have a self-leveling laser. So the laser line is right there, it's green. I can actually measure here also. Right now I'm at 4 1/4 inches. If I go back over here, I'm at 4 1/4 inches, so I know that that's where my strip needs to be. Right now this end is at 4 1/2. So I know for a fact that the end of this has to go down a little bit. And you can see the marking on the insulation up here where it was originally, and that also tells me it has to go down a little bit. So then you go on and drive your 2-inch nails through the tin and then through my Groundbreaker and nail that into position. I like to start from one end and work towards the other so that you know where you're at and you don't end up with a bunch of bulges in it. Otherwise you could end up with bulges in it as you're going, and that wouldn't be good. This doesn't have to be pounded in too tight because just snug up to the insulation, because the insulation is back there and you could actually pound it into the depths of the insulation, and you really don't want to do that either. Just as it originally was, you want to put in approximately 8 to 12 inches. These are the Tapcon concrete anchors that I bought that hold the Groundbreaker to the through the insulation and into the concrete. They take 3/16 inch bit for a 1/4 inch tap con, and I'll show you how I'm drilling those in and anchoring that along. Now, a tip that I found works better is if you start from the middle of a section and work towards the outside, just in case there's some sort of a where the Groundbreaker, if you didn't have it on perfectly straight, that you don't end up with a big bulge in the middle. You'll be working that towards the outside, and then you won't have that bulge in the center. Every 18 inches is what I'm putting a tap con in, and down towards the bottom. I drill the hole through the Groundbreaker with a regular drill bit first, and then go into it with a 3/16 concrete drill. I actually have a regular concrete hammer drill. I also have this, but that's a hammer drill, but it really doesn't, it's slow. It works, but it's very slow. This is a little faster. This is more of an industrial use. I bought it at an auction. Works real good. I'm very pleased with it. I think it cost me like $19 on auction used. Pull that up. Just pull it up snug up against your insulation without pulling it too crazy and making it basically wave at you. Make sure you don't have anything stuck behind here, because if you got something stuck behind there and you're trying to pull it up tight, you're going to have issues. You're going to break it. So when I start out, I pull it out to there, roll it out ahead of time, set the other box there so the roll doesn't roll backwards, and then leave it sit out in the sun for a while so it softens it up, and then come back, get my measurement, lay my boards across so I'm not cutting down into my concrete with my circular saw. I have that right there, and I have it set so that I'm only cutting about 5/8 of an inch through, and blade is on backwards. So this is the first time I'll be making a lengthwise cut, because on the front of my house I don't need a full 24 inches. I need 20, so I'm going to take 4 inches off of it. I have a 2x2, or I should say two 2x2s, 8 feet long under this. It's a 16-foot, 8.5 inch piece I'm cutting here, and my cut line is right there, so I'm putting the 2x4 just to the inside so it supports the weight of the circular saw. See how this works, Ma? You can kick my ass. I hope not.